From Project Camelot, and I'm here with Paul Hellyer at the National Press Club, and we're here at the Citizens Hearing for Disclosure. It is Wednesday in this event, and there's, I guess, 1 or 2 more days. I'm headed back tomorrow, so this is my last opportunity to interview Paul Hellyer. And Paul, would you give a little of your background? I know everyone pretty much knows who you are, but if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I'm a Canadian politician, first elected in 1949, and served in 3 administrations. First, Louis Saint Laurent, most people don't even remember, and then Lester B. Pearson through his time in office, and then for a year with Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And my principal portfolios were National Defense for 5 years, and then the Department of Transport for a year. And it was very interesting, and I've kept an interest in politics ever since, especially some issues like monetary reform, which has been my passion, still is. It's my late wife used to call it an obsession, but we have to change the banking and financial system worldwide in order to change from fossil fuel economy to a clean energy economy. Within the very, very few years that we've got it, or the world's going to go up in flames, not literally, but as far as a habitable place for the human species is concerned. And so I'm still in there pitching, and the thing I want to try and get out of disclosure, well, I want the whole, everything just about disclosed, but most urgently, the clean energy, which the Black Ops have developed, have had available for years, and which somehow the cabal, as I call them, the people with the running the banking system and who own the oil cartel as well, that put pressure on to come clean and stop drilling oil wells and starting new oil sands projects and start making the small contrivances necessary to power, I would say, every home, car, truck, tractor, and airplane in the world within the next 8 years, with the kind of mobilization that we had during World War II. I was just talking to somebody about it. But I remember I was there, and we converted all of the car manufacturing plants and the refrigerator manufacturing plants and the washing machine manufacturing plants. They were all converted into making weapons and armaments. And we have to do just exactly the opposite today, and convert all of the places that are making armaments and weapons of mass destruction and all of that sort of thing into clean energy, manufacturing clean energy appliances, which will make it possible for us to rescue the world from global warming before it's past the point of no return, which is coming up very, very fast. So this keeps me active and keeps me going, and a lot of things to do and a lot of urgency. So it's nice to be part of the disclosure process and to do my little bit to try and urge people to act now before it's too late. Okay, well,
very, very well said. At this moment, though, we're here at the Citizens Hearing for Disclosure, and you are attending. I don't know if you're one of the witnesses or if you just...
Yes, I'm a witness, and I'll be on Friday afternoon,
okay,
right at the end.
Okay, so I'm going to miss your testimony, but I will watch it on the live stream when I get home.
Right.
But in essence, if you could encapsulate your position on this whole matter, and I know that it's been widely publicized to some degree, thanks to Paula Harris and other journalists that have interviewed you. I think perhaps Exopolitics, that forum, you've gone through them for some of your disclosures. But if you could sort of encapsulate all of that.
Well, I won't be talking about practically none about the kinds of things that most of the witnesses have been talking about. They're the experts, they're ufologists. I'm not, I'm a politician. But I have a fair amount of background in this area now. I didn't 8 years ago, but I have quite a bit of background now. And so I will merely assume, because I know it to be true, that UFOs are real, that there are extraterrestrials visiting Earth that they have for millennia, and that I will probably also say that they've been working with the United States government closely for a number of years, and that they have shared technology, and that they're still here, and that they have developed things that we should know about, both the good and bad, and then give reasons why the public is entitled to know. Because it's time for a paradigm change from what we have known traditionally, where one country says we've got to have the best and the best and the worst weapons, the most devastating weapons, so that we can keep the other guys from being first and threatening us, and leave that paradigm and say the time has come to cooperate in saving the world and working together to make it a hospitable place, and to make sure that there's a better division of wealth, and that it offers promise for young people from all races and areas on the globe, and just a different approach, a much more cooperative approach, rather than saying we have got to be the biggest and the best, and we have got to dominate. So instead of domination, cooperative, the word should be cooperation. And that's sort of the direction in which I'm going to urge the group to take.
Now, you yourself have had a sighting, is that correct?
Yes. No.
Okay. Can you briefly describe that?
Yes, it happened in Muskoka, which is the area north of Toronto, about 2 miles north of Toronto, a couple of years ago on Thanksgiving. And until then, I had never actually seen one, although I had talked to a lot of people that had. And one Canadian official who had been inside of one of the vehicles in western United States. But for some reason, my wife decided she'd go out and take a look at the stars. And something that I wasn't really used to doing, I put on my cap and followed her out. And she pointed to the eastern sky and said, oh, look, there's a star there. And I turned, looked, and then I turned back the other way, and I said, oh, there's a brighter one in the western sky. And she turned to look at that, and lo and behold, it started doing movements in the sky. And we were transfixed. I almost broke my neck watching it for 20 minutes. And it was absolutely amazing, because it would change positions in the sky by 2 or 3 degrees in as many seconds. And I have a background in aeronautics, and I thought, there's nothing that I know of that can do that. Still, I checked when I got home, and it wasn't a space station, it wasn't any one of the satellites, it wasn't anything that anybody could track down for that time and place. And it was really fascinating to watch, because it would just drop down in the sky and then rip back up and then shift position, and it was mesmerizing. And then actually 2 days later, I went down to the dock and sat in a chair, and it came back and did the same thing. Only this time I was more comfortable, so that I could watch for a little while longer. But that was my only experience of actually seeing a vehicle. But and it was good, because it's sort of, in the olden days, people used to say, well, have you seen one? And I say, no, and what I should have said, I haven't seen the Taj Mahal either, but I know it exists.
Very good. Let me ask you, because you were very much in government for many years, right? No. Canadian government. Right. But you must have sort of been aware of what we call black projects, right?
Well, not at that time.
Not at that time?
No, this is all within the last 10 years, and mostly the last 8 years.
Okay, and so was it the sighting that triggered your investigation into the Black Project area, or did you just sort of gradually be contacted by people that gave you information?
This is all developed in the last few years as I studied more, and I was briefed by many of the people who have been witnesses at this disclosure meeting, and I read dozens of books and talked to abductees and cross-examine them and all of this sort of thing. And as you go along, you just pick up a lot of information. I've been, not only am I aware of Area 51, which nearly everybody knows about, but a few years ago I was briefed along with Dr. Robert Miller, who was also with us here.
So, sorry, we were just interrupted slightly, but what we were saying was you basically started investigating this area, getting more and more information on a learning curve, you might even say, right?
Absolutely. After I went public in 2005 in September, and immediately I started getting briefings from the best ufologists. Dr. Greer, for example, came to Toronto and briefed me for 3 hours, and he was just the first of many.
Okay.
And then the information started coming in. Documents came from all over the world, some classified, some not, and books. I'm going to say by the dozen, certainly more than one or two dozen, and I've read nearly all of them. And then I got invitations to conferences, and I've spoken at a couple of them, and watched the presenters who all were experts in their field. Mm-hmm. And then before I wrote my own book, Light at the End of the Tunnel, Survival Plan for the Human Species, a couple of years ago, I actually interviewed some abductees, Travis Walton, after whom Fire in the Sky was named, and Jim Sparks, who has been abducted more than almost anybody in the business, and interrogated them, cross-examined them, and learned a lot from them, but especially came to the conclusion that they were telling the truth and that they were legitimate. And then talking to all sorts of people, and each one had a little bit of information to add, just as our disclosure assembly here has heard from one witness after another, and each one has added something. And so it's an accumulation of extra knowledge, and it's fascinating. It's a whole new dimension. I called it a broader perspective, a broader reality. And it's something like a scroll. I see, if you have a scroll, like the Torah, for example, you pull it out, then you put it back in. But this is a scroll that opens at both ends and just keeps going on and on and on. And it is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And one of the lines in my book that I really liked the best was that I didn't know how much I didn't know because I didn't know how much there was to know. That is still the case. And I certainly know a heck of a lot more than I did 8 years ago.
Okay. One last question before we wrap up here. I just want to ask you, you've participated in 3 days of the hearings, I assume, more or less, and you're going to be here until Friday. So far, are you impressed with the Congress people, ex-Congress people that are sort of chairing this event, and their questions and the directions in which it's going? Do you feel that there are some limitations there? What are your hopes for what's happening here?
I think they're doing their job well. I feel a little bit for them, a little empathy, because I know they're overwhelmed. They had no idea before they got here how much they were going to hear, how many expert witnesses, how many new things were going to be thrown at them, and the rapidity with which they were going to be thrown at them. So it's a very difficult time for them, trying to keep up with one curveball after another, something like a batter at the plate and trying to hit the fastballs coming from high and low. And I think they're handling it quite well, and I give them a lot of credit for hanging in there and putting in long hours and being so cooperative and interested.
Okay, and as far as there's been something of a backing off of taking this to Congress. Initially, it was thought that these ex-members of Congress could then take the ball, so to speak, that they're kind of learning about here to Congress and maybe get it off the ground so that it would be investigated at further hearings in Congress, etc. Today they seem to be backing off that idea and wanting to sort of shuttle it over to the United Nations. What do you think about that idea?
I think it would be a great mistake. Congress is the point. Congress is the only one that can do anything about the cabal. Congress is the only one that can get the information out. They may have to use strong-arm methods, in both cases, on the monetary front and on the ET disclosure front. But Congress is responsible. They have not been looking at the expenditures the way that the Constitution required them to. And it is my opinion that they have to pick up the ball and start moving, and moving very quickly, and that that's the place where the change has got to come from. So I hope we can persuade the panel before it's over that they may not be able to convince Congress, but that they'll do their bit, as well as the mainline press, or some press, trying to do their bit,
Yes.
to persuade Congress that they would be derelict, and have been derelict, and would be derelict in the future if they don't grab this ball and run with it.
Well, I'm very happy to hear you say that. I have to say I agree with you. I think they would be making a big mistake to just go directly to the United Nations. I've been told by confidential sources that the United Nations has actually a panel of investigators into the UFO question. But the bottom line is that the power seems to reside in the U.S.
The power
Certainly,
resides in the U.S. with the cabal,
yes.
but the Congress has got to reassume its power and
Yes.
make the United States a democracy again.
That would be
Which it is not at the moment, because
absolutely.
the economy is being run by Wall Street, and the forces that are supposed to be under the command of the president are doing all sorts of things which they say the president is not entitled to know about, and that is not democracy.
Right.
So the start, it has to be, they have to reclaim the idea of the forefathers of the republic, of the government of, by, and for the people, and make it real. And that's their responsibility, and that's what they should do.
Okay, well, I hope very much that on Friday, when you get your chance to speak, that you'll be able to say that to the panel, to the Congress people, and to the world. If you feel so inclined, it would be great for them to hear that from you.
I think I'll have to.
Okay.
Have
All
to
right.
do my bit.
Well, thank you so much, Paul Hellyer. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope we can do this again real soon.
Thank you very much.
But if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I'm a Canadian politician, first elected in 1949, and served in 3 administrations. First, Louis Saint Laurent, most people don't even remember, and then Lester B. Pearson through his time in office, and then for a year with Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And my principal portfolios were national defense for 5 years, and then the Department of Transport for a year. And it was very interesting, and I've kept an interest in politics ever since, especially some issues like monetary reform, which has been my passion, still is. It's my late wife used to call it an obsession.
From Project Camelot, and I'm here with Paul Hellyer at the National Press Club, and we're here at the Citizens Hearing for Disclosure. It is Wednesday in this event, and there's, I guess, 1 or 2 more days. I'm headed back tomorrow, so this is my last opportunity to interview Paul Hellyer. And Paul, would you give a little of your background? I know everyone pretty much knows who you are.
But we have to change the banking and financial system worldwide in order to change from fossil fuel economy to a clean energy economy within the very, very few years that we've got it, or the world's going to go up in flames, not literally, but as far as a habitable place for the human species.